Now imagine, you've boarded a plane to escape your past, only to find that everyone on board is already gone. Our protagonist, Rick, thought that a flight to Scotland would help him outrun his grief. When the passengers stare blankly and the flight attendant won't respond, it becomes clear. Something is very wrong at 30,000 feet. Now, this is a brilliant tale. I will say no more at the start because I don't want to give anything away, but I know you're going to love this one. So, without further ado, here we go with Lost Flight by Corpse Child. Part 1. But little was my notion that when we parted by the ocean, we were forever parted by the banks of the Lee. Silly wizard, banks of the Lee. Flight 249, now boarding. I repeat, Flight 249, now boarding. My head snapped up from my phone to look at the overhead screen. Sure enough, there was the numbers for my flight. Flight 249, one way to Scotland. This was it. Taking a deep breath, I picked up my bags and began walking to the terminal, walking toward the metaphorical gateway to my new life. I looked back one last time behind me, taking one last look at what I was soon to be leaving behind. For a moment, I was actually hesitant to go the rest of the way through the terminal. There's nothing for you here, Rick, I reminded myself before taking another deep breath. She's gone now. They both are. I took a moment to let one or two stray tears fall down my face before facing forward and walking through the terminal. I quietly found a seat and made myself comfortable. Strangely, I can remember just how quiet it was while the flight was boarding. People stepped onto the plane, disregarding each other for the most part. Everyone had this cold, lifeless look on their faces, like they too were trying to just get the hell out of town the same way I was. It was about another half hour before the announcement came over the loudspeaker. Now that I think of it, I don't remember at any point hearing any of the cabin attendants going over safety procedures or anything, though admittedly I wasn't paying much attention to much of anything once I'd sat down, having put my earbuds in and turned on my ASMR app. I was exhausted, having prepared for this trip for at least a week straight. Couldn't sleep at all through that week, nor do I think any of you would have been able to either, if every time you closed your eyes you had the same nightmare. If every time you laid down at night you saw the face of your loved one being engulfed in fire, screaming out to you to save them, before having her flesh seared from her bones. Would you be able to sleep peacefully? To this day I still wonder how the hell I didn't lose my mind long before all this went down. To be perfectly honest, I should have gone mad when it all happened, especially given just how little of what happened I understood. It was 2 years ago that Irene and I had decided to go to the mountains for our 3rd anniversary. We'd been a couple since college, and I even proposed to her at our graduation party. Since then, we'd been a happy little pair of lovebirds, until that day. Now, like I said, I can't really describe much of what happened in any comprehensible way. So much happened so quickly. I remember that me and her were hiking about 3/4 of the way up the mountain when we stopped, having to rest our legs. Panting, I remarked to her, "Geez, you think after all that time doing track, we'd have made it a little further, huh?" "Says you," she replied, scoffing. She made her voice try to go deep to sound like me saying, "Oh, hon, can we please stop? I gotta rest my legs." "Well, I said that because you were dragging ass behind me, slowpoke." She smirked, flipped me off, and delivered a punch to the shoulder for my smart-ass mouth. I laughed and said, "Call that a punch? Come on, Mama. I know you can hit harder than that." She snickered before stiffening her upper lip into a defiant smirk and trying to hit me again. This time I caught her wrists and trapped them in a crisscross, holding her still. She struggled against me for a second before conceding. Sighing, she said, "Okay, babe, you win. You're the strongest and the handsomest." She said this last part with a wink and a sly grin parting the corner of her mouth. I almost didn't notice, though, having lost myself in her eyes, those ember-red jewels that sat peacefully in the middle of two oceans of midnight seas, burning right through my eyes, through my mind, straight through to my heart and soul every time I stared into them. For a moment, the only sound around the two of us, the only signs of life from around us, was the singular sound of the breeze whipping our hair and the clothes on our backs. "What?" she asked. I shook my head, blinking. "Huh?" I asked. "Can I go now, officer?" she joked, her grin growing amused again. I looked down to see I still had her wrists. I chuckled nervously, releasing them. "Sorry about that, just, kind of lost myself there for a sec." "What do you mean?" Her sly grin returned. "You trying to say you like playing rough?" She then giggled and winked, and I chuckled. "No, God, if I told you, you have the prettiest eyes in the world." Well, she snickered and replied, "Well, 1,000,000 times, actually. 3,000 just today." And I smiled. "I'll happily tell you 1,000,000 times more." After that, silence pervaded the trail around us. The only sounds of life around us were the early autumn breeze whipping our hair and the clothes on our backs. Gradually, almost unconsciously, our bodies became closer and closer to one another until eventually our eyes closed and our lips met. We stayed locked in each other's embrace for a whole 25 seconds, the heat of the moment actually drowning out the chill of the wind prickling at our bodies. I'd like to say that we'd never separated had it not been for the fact that I could feel the heat intensify from her body. It was a whole 5 seconds before I opened my eyes, doing so only after I felt Irene's hands jerk away from my body like she was in a hurry to get away from me. When I did open my eyes, I saw Irene looking horrified at her hands. "Irene?" I asked, feeling my heart rate jump from 0 to 10,000 in that half a second time span. "Baby, what's wrong?" She looked at me, opening her mouth to speak, only to get cut off by a sharp cry of pain that had her doubling over, clutching her stomach. "Irene!" I reached out to her, but instantly retracted when I saw her body beginning to glow. She cried out in pain, her whole body glowing brighter and brighter. I began to feel heat, intense heat, like her body in itself was an exploding star emitting from her body. I even saw beginning to singe the hair from my arms. The brighter her body glowed, the harder it became for me to be able to see her. I shouted, "Irene!" For a brief moment, I saw her eyes stare back at me, wide and afraid. "Richard!" she cried. When I reached for her again, a searing pain ran across my arm, and when I pulled it back, I saw the skin beginning to blister. Before I could try to do anything again, her body released a sort of shockwave of blinding light that, coupled with the scorching blaze of heat, made me almost swear for a moment that I was on fire. I was forced to shield my eyes, and when I opened them again, I was alone. I looked all around. Nothing. "Irene!" My head swung furiously all around. "Irene! Irene!" There was no answer from anywhere. My head stopped swinging when I looked down at where she was standing. Right there in front of me, in place of my beautiful wife, was a large black spot where I could see small wafts of smoke jumping from it to pollute the sky. At that moment, I dropped to my knees and began screaming Irene's name deliriously. I'd have sworn I was there for next to an eternity, having continued my howling until my throat tore itself in half. Not even much of an exaggeration either, judging from the doctor's visit I had to take later on because of it. But at some point, a couple walking by found me and asked me what was wrong. I'll say 2 things. First, bless them for actually giving enough of a damn to stop and want to even try listening to some howling stranger who, no doubt, scared the hell out of them with his racket. Second, if they were able to understand a damn bit of the inane gibberish I was spewing at them, then they deserve an award of some sort. I tried my best to tell them, in one way or another, that my wife was missing. They helped me down and off the mountain, by which I really mean they more or less dragged me away from the black, smouldering remains of my wife, kicking and screaming like a lunatic, like I said, bless them, and escorted me to the nearest police station. From there, it was more or less the same situation, with me trying to explain something to them that I didn't understand while having no composure whatsoever. Long story short, they told me to go home and that they'd search for her. Told me they'd find her. I started awake on the plane. For a moment, my head swiveled around the cabin. Irene? Everything was still quiet. Everyone was still, facing forward, either with their heads down, likely on their phones or something, or just staring blankly at the cockpit. I relaxed once more in my seat. She's gone, Rick. I looked out of the window to my right. The sky was a perfect shade of blue, the kind of shade you don't normally see unless you're right there in it, swimming or at least floating in it. Unless it's all around you, in a way that's achievable only when you're 50,000 feet in the air on a plane, or on a mountainside. I shook my head, turning away from the window. It's been 2 goddamn years. She's gone, she ain't coming back. Readjusting myself in my chair, I refixed my earbuds and restarted the app. In seconds, I was once again in sleep's numbing embrace. Images of the perfect blue sky, of Irene, so quite literally drowned out by those of grey, cloudy skies, unleashing a torrential downpour upon stone-cold earth. It was a perfect diversion. Anodyne, if you will, allowing me to completely forget about Irene, forget about my old life, forget that I was alone. I have your heart so long as it beats, Ricky boy, she said, giggling. She sat on my lap as I laid across my old, torn-up couch, straddling me, wearing her sports bra and leggings. She'd just gotten home from yoga practice. She'd hopped on me as soon as she'd walked through the door. She was smiling down at me, causing me to lose myself in her eyes. She ran her fingers along my chest, slowly running them along so I'd feel every soft inch of them as she went. Well, I'm glad to see you home too, babe, I replied, chuckling. She giggled her adorable little girlish giggle, a giggle whose sound is matched by the giggle of a baby, before leaning down to touch her nose to mine. Yeah, what's the occasion? I asked, grinning. What do you mean? She replied with her own smile widening. Oh, you're awfully cheery this afternoon. Usually you're tired after yoga practice. What, did you have a little extra something in your shake today? She laughed, throwing her head back. Maybe a little bit, she replied with a joking sense of guilt, giving me the look a child gives when they've been caught eating glue paste. Little bit, huh? Uh-huh. Oh, God, you're adorable, you know that. Like you'll ever let me forget, she joked. And you're such a little goof, you know that? I winked. Like you'd ever let me forget. A grin stretched from one ear to the other as she gave me a peck on the nose before laying her head down on my chest, nuzzling her head directly in the center of my pecs. Looking down at her, with the rays of the afternoon sun just ever so gently stroking her face, the same way her fingers so tenderly caressed my chest, giving her an almost blazing aura that I could actually detect the heat from. I told myself, yeah, Ricky boy, you really are the luckiest man alive. Despite the rinky-dink apartment, long, exhausting, though decently paying job, and whatever bullshit you carry around with you in your day-to-day life, you have this angel on your chest, and she happily holds your heart. The heat radiating from her began getting to me more and more. I noticed beads of sweat forming on my forehead. I began looking around the room, looking for the thermostat. Her head raised up again to look me in the eyes. Baby, what's wrong? Nothing, just, I paused for a moment, a feeling of nausea briefly taking effect on me. Is it, getting hot in here? She chuckled. No, it's just you. She winked, saying this. I chuckled, though not as relaxed as before, and replied, yeah, but seriously, don't you feel that? Feel what? I don't know, it's burning up in here. Can you see the thermostat? She looked over to the far corner of the living room. "It's only room temperature, hon," she said, a smile slowly giving way to a look of concern. "Are you, feeling okay?" "Yeah, I think so." She put the back of her hand on my forehead. Almost immediately I winced, feeling like a scorching piece of metal had been pressed against it. "Oh shit, Ricky, you're burning up." "Look who's talking," I joked. Her face, however, told me she wasn't taking it that way. Her eyebrows raised. "Huh? You're even hotter than I am now." "Babe, I'm serious. I think you have a fever." "I'm serious too. Your hand was just shy of singeing my hair just now." She got up and walked into the kitchen before returning with a glass of water and a couple of Tylenol. For just a moment, I swore I saw the water in the glass begin bubbling, the way it would if it were boiling. I didn't say anything, though. "Here, take a couple of these. I'll make some food later, okay?" I did as requested, despite knowing damn well I didn't have a fever. After that, she went to take a shower. I lay alone on the couch, alone once again. My mind was divided between thoughts of joining her in the shower and wondering what had happened there. What was going on with Irene's skin just now, I wondered. I know she was directly under the sun and all, but it shouldn't have heated up like that, should it? I ended up electing the former option, to join her, and got up from the couch, undressing as I went toward the bathroom. I, almost skillfully in a way, managed to slip into the bathroom completely unnoticed, quieter than a mouse. Immediately upon entering, though, I noticed just how humid the air had become. From the instant I walked in, it was like I'd walked into a steam room, moisture and steam from the air almost suffocating me. I actually had to turn around and walk straight back out. But how the hell can she stand it in there? I looked back into the bathroom. The water was still running, steam was billowing out in clouds from the open doorway. Despite this, I could still hear Irene's soft, tender voice singing, "May it be," not at all impeded by the heat. At one point, starting to put my clothes back on, I looked in the bathroom and my eyes widened when I saw a bright orange glow coming from it. I was about to investigate further, but before I could reach the bathroom again, the glow disappeared and the water was turned off. Not knowing what the hell I was supposed to do, if anything really, I went back to lying on the couch. Irene stepped out of the bathroom, towel drying her hair while the towel around her body slowly found itself falling away from her, accidentally revealing herself. Normally I get caught red-handed staring or trying to pretend not to notice, both of which elicited sly, playful giggles from her before one thing would lead to another. This time, when she caught me staring, it was with a puzzled look on my face. "What is it, hon?" she asked. Nothing. Just, thought I saw something." "What?" "I don't know. Something glowing." She frowned at this. "Glowing?" "Yeah, from the bathroom while you were in the shower." She turned to look back at the bathroom before looking at me while pointing to it. She did another double take before shrugging the whole thing off and telling me she was tired out after yoga and she'd be going to lie down. She went into the bedroom while I remained on the couch, alone and confused. I woke, this time needing the restroom. It was night out, though everyone still appeared awake. Hundreds of blank eyes, dead faces and hollow stares were all focused forward. And I'll admit, by this point, this was beginning to unnerve me. Why was everybody seemingly acting weird all at the same time? Regardless, I slowly walked to the back of the cabin toward the restroom, at least where I thought the restroom was. When I made it to the other end of the plane, as far as I could go anyways, I couldn't find the restrooms anywhere. I looked and started back in the other direction. Along the way, I kept looking along the walls to see if maybe I'd missed the sign along the way. Needless to say, though, I hadn't. Then I started looking for an attendant, or someone who might be able to help me. Through all of this, silence itself had a chokehold on the entire plane. I felt like I wasn't even on a plane, like I wasn't even awake. I made it to the front end of the plane and knocked on the door to the cockpit. I stood there for a good 15 minutes with nothing at all happening. I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to knock again or just go back to my seat. In the end, the answer, to my surprise, would be neither, as, shockingly, the door opened and out stepped a young, rail-thin lady in an attendant's uniform. "Excuse me, ma'am," I asked. She didn't respond, or move, or even seem to breathe, for that matter. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I can't seem to find the restroom. You think you'd be able to help me out?" She continued staring at me with almost corpse-like eyes, glazed-looking and greyish-white in colour. Her mouth also seemed to hang sort of limply. Her face perfectly portrayed the emptiness of both her mind and her heart. In this sense, she didn't look dead. She was less than dead. I waved my hand in front of her face, garnering no response from that either. May I speak to the captain then?" For the record, I knew that this wouldn't ever be allowed under normal circumstances. But A, these weren't exactly normal circumstances, were they? And B, I was on the verge of slapping her just to get some kind of reaction or answer out of her. And so I figured asking something a bit ludicrous wasn't altogether pointless. More to my shock, it actually worked as she slowly spoke, saying in the most scratchy, monotone voice, devoid entirely of any recognizable emotion, save maybe depression, even that's a bit of a stretch. "Please return to your seat, sir. We'll be reaching our final destination soon." The way her mouth moved, coupled with the deadpan tone in her voice, I almost swore it was some sort of puppet talking to me. Okay, but I need the restroom. Can you just tell me where..." "Time is almost here, sir. It will all be over soon." My eyes widened. "Excuse me," I said, feeling my heart already starting to kick into overdrive. "It will all be over soon, sir," she repeated, slowly turning back toward the door. "Yeah, wait. Please return to your seat, sir." It was the last thing I heard from her before she shut the door back in my face. For a moment, I stood dumbfounded. The hell was that? What was her problem? I turned to look back at the other passengers. Each one of them stared unblinkingly toward me. Not at me, but rather through me. The same way the attendant was just a second ago. What the hell is going on? I would have been more inclined to press the attendant again for answers, namely what the hell she meant by "it'll all be over soon," but unfortunately, my need for the bathroom all but diminished any concentration I had with that. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hands and start hunting for the restroom myself again. I went through the cabin for about another 10 minutes, each one that passed making it harder and harder to hold it in, until I finally found what looked like a restroom about midway through. How I'd missed it, especially given that it was located just a few rows from where I was sitting, I didn't know, but nor did I care. I rushed as quickly as I could to the door and swung it open before hurling myself head first inside. While I was in there, I started thinking again about what the flight attendant had said. Now normally, I'd have chalked it up just to her having an off day or something. But then, why was everybody having an off day? Why was she the only one that had spoken at all? "We'll be reaching our final destination soon, sir." Why does that sound so familiar? I thought then of her voice, her face, how lifeless it looked, as well as the faces of the other passengers. All of it was familiar to me in a way that gave me an almost physically sickening feeling. But why? "You okay, honey bunny?" I asked her. She was on the couch, looking glumly out of the window. Her eyes broke from the window to look at me. The expression on her face was dead, careless, unfiltered, untouched by any sort of emotion. "Irene, what's wrong?" She sighed, a sort of sigh that I almost couldn't hear. It was less a sigh, actually, and more like she was just giving away her last breath. My heart melted right then and there, not even knowing what the hell was wrong. The sun shone, clear skies, and we were even off from work that day. I was even planning on surprising her with a trip to the movies, her number one go-to when it came to ideas for date nights. I went over and reached out to put my hand on her shoulder when she retracted away from my hand. I froze, unsure of what I should or even could do. In all of that time, a little over 2.5 years into our marriage, she'd never once gotten into moods like this. She always had the most beaming, vibrant, free-spirited personality I'd ever seen in a woman. She'd always been the sunshine to my cloudiest days, while I was always the one that kept her down to earth, so to speak, keeping her feet on the ground, you know. But this... Irene, baby, talk to me. What happened? She looked at me, looking more through my eyes than at them. Her mouth slowly opened, and she spoke in a voice I almost couldn't believe was coming from her. It sounded like I was hearing an answering machine talk to me, with somehow even less inflection than one, if that was possible at all. It's all going to end soon. What? I frowned. She kept staring, her face not wavering in the slightest. Baby, what are you talking about? What's ending? She looked to the window again. I followed her gaze. Everything was normal outside, vibrant, alive, cheerful. It's all ending. I can feel it. I slowly put my hand on her shoulder. I instantly jerked back when I felt her skin was all of a sudden blisteringly hot again. I'd done this a few times before. I could never understand why. Baby, you're burning up, I said to her. Her eyes didn't move from the window this time. It's coming to an end. Everything. I don't understand. What are you... Look at it all, Rick. I stopped, turning back toward the window. It's beautiful, isn't it? I stayed silent for a moment before answering. Yeah, it is. She let out another very faint sigh. Something's happening, Rick. To me, She trailed off for a moment before finishing with, I can feel it. What's coming? I asked. I don't know. I don't know what it is or why it's happening, but I know it is, and it's happening soon. About 10 to 20 minutes passed in silence after that. There was no real comeback for that, no optimistic or comforting thought I could give. Call me what you will, terrible consolation, poor bedside manner, or what have you. I didn't have any words of comfort to offer my wife in that moment. Like I said, she'd never behaved or talked like this before, so I had absolutely no way to respond to this. And also, like I mentioned, I was never the most uplifting type myself. Doing my best to at least try to comfort her, I spoke up in my cheeriest voice possible, though one that likely wouldn't have cheered up a crying child, let alone someone as depressed as she was. Hey, I think we should go to the movies today. We don't have work, and I believe they're playing it. I stopped when she turned to look at me, her face still dead as a doornail. Did you not hear a word I just said? She asked, her voice remaining in its deadlocked monotone. I clammed up. I just can't, Rick. Not when I know it's all going to be over soon anyway. She took one last look at the window before getting up from the couch and walking into the bedroom. Wait, Irene, what are you... She shut the door right as I was finishing the sentence. I stayed in the living room, sitting alone, speechless, both my heart jackhammering in my chest as well as my head spinning all the way round like it was a globe for a solid 15 minutes. I couldn't decide whether I was supposed to go to her, to try again to comfort her somehow, or if I just should stay here, sitting on my knees staring at the hallway, jaw slacked like an idiot. I wanted to hold her, don't get me wrong. I wanted to squeeze her the way you'd squeeze a plush toy when you were sad. I wanted to clutch her tightly to me, like if I were to let go, I and the whole of reality would fall apart. But then, would that have made any difference? Regardless, a few moments later, I decided to get up from the floor and walk into the bedroom. On the bed lay my wife, lying straight and stiff on her side, facing away from the doorway. I froze at the sight for two reasons. For starters, she never slept like this. She was always one to curl up into a ball, making it perfect to nuzzle against me, giving me that almost fatherly-like feeling that I was nestling a sleeping child next to me. But now this, as well as the fact that her body was glowing. I rubbed my eyes to make sure I was seeing it correctly. Sure enough, amid the darkness, with the only other light perhaps coming from the window, bleeding past the curtains, there she was, a golden aura beaming around her. She was stiff, rigid still, making me wonder if she was awake, asleep, or if she was dead. My foot raised to take a step, but I wasn't sure what to do. Of course, the logical answer would have been to get to her, maybe snuggle her close to me and say, well, that was just it. What the hell was I supposed to say? My wife was glowing, and like the other times before, I could feel the heat blazing from her body. She was a sun in the middle of a dark abyss, a flame flickering in a dark hallway, one that appeared to be flickering out. The sight of this was killing me with every second I spent looking at it because I knew she was in pain, but from what I couldn't begin to know. I finally took a step forward, then another and another. My feet, more or less, moved absently from my body. My mind and my body acted separate from each other, with every instinct telling me I needed to stay at the doorway and, albeit feebly, try figuring out what the hell was going on before trying to get to her, while my body all but flipped its deuces at that and continued forward. I silently reached the bed, where I slowly climbed in behind her, went to put my arm around her, and I froze, a stinging pain starting to shoot throughout my arm. My arm hovered there for a moment before curling back to my body, and so, unable to touch her or say anything to her, I just lay there, staring at her stiffened back. The room was warm and quiet, the way you'd imagine a fireplace to sound, save the crackle of the flames. I don't know when or how long it had been when I had the idea, but I suddenly found it in me to speak up. Hey, want to do something cool for our anniversary? She made no movements, voicing no response, but I continued anyway. You know, we never did get to make it to the top of the mountains like we always planned. She still didn't move, but I did see the glow around her starting to dim. Out of a sort of instinct, I reached out again to touch her back. It was still warm, but tolerable, and becoming cooler and cooler by the second. I couldn't tell you why, other than a guess that whatever the hell it was that was going on with her was somehow linked to her emotions or something. In other words, my words were getting through to her in some way and comforting her. I started softly caressing her back along the length of her spine. Her skin continued to cool under my fingers. I can still see us. I started again, forming the image in my head of the two of us on the mountainside that day 3 years ago, the day I first proposed to her. You remember, baby? The clear sunny sky, big fluffy clouds. I chuckled. You always called them sky pillows. Yeah, remember how we were lying down and looking at the sky pillows, trying to see who'd be the first to spot one that looked like a fish? Her body had all but stopped glowing by now, and her body was just mildly lukewarm. The skin felt soft and mellow again. I think you were the first one to actually find one. Said it looked like Nemo for some reason. I could never see it. Marlin, I heard her say faintly. Huh? It was Marlin, not Nemo. I chuckled. Yeah, right, Marlin. My bad. He was bigger than most of the other ones, but still only noticeable if you were looking, just like an actual fish in the ocean. Just like you. That's when I finally felt her body start to move beneath my fingers. She shifted around to face me. Her face was hard to see, with only half of it illuminated by the ever-dimming rays from the window. That said, I could see that her haunting glare of sorrow, her empty stare, was gone, replaced with a more familiarly tender and loving face, the one a mother gives her child when they're what makes them smile that day. You always stood out to me, my last little fish alone in the sea, looking for something, but wasn't sure what. A hand moved up to my chest, stroking it like how I stroked her back. You always had the better eyes of both of us, I said. We stayed out there till the sun started going down. And all the little sky pillows went away, she finished, slipping a small yet oh so adorable little giggle in. I snickered. Remember how we fell asleep right there on the mountainside, and the ranger had to wake us up and run us out of there? I giggled, and you thought he was Smokey the Bear. The laugh was noticeable this time. You started freaking out, and I had to hold on to you to keep you from going apeshit on that guy. I took a deep breath then, before asking her, "Remember what I said to you?" She rolled over again, putting her face first on top of me, looking directly into my eyes, and she answered, "Irene, baby doll, I'll always love you till the end of time." You reached into your pocket and pulled out this ring, the most beautiful ring I'd ever seen. She held up her finger. I grabbed you up and tried to snap you in half with a bear hug. Damn near did, too, I said, chuckling. She grinned a toothy grin, allowing the last rays of light from the window to accentuate each and every one of her beautiful ivory teeth. She moved in closer, bringing her nose close to mine, and the two of us kissed. Knowing now that her skin was normal again, I slowly brought my hands up to take a hold of her gently. The two of us stayed in an eternal embrace for the rest of that afternoon, with her falling asleep curled up next to me, her face nuzzled in my chest. I stayed awake, though. I was unable to sleep. I couldn't risk the thought of something happening to her while I was asleep. It's all gonna end anyways. The words echoed through my head, hollowing it out in my brain, making it the single dominant thought. It was a lone voice that looped in my head, piercing the otherwise peacefully quiet atmosphere of the bedroom. What could any of it mean, though? I looked down at my wife's beautiful face, sound asleep, and wondered just what could have been going through that beaming, amazing mind of hers. What could she have been dreaming about? Was that what started this? Maybe she just had a bad dream and took it too seriously. But what was going on with her body? I ran my hand along her back again. Other than being maybe a bit warmer than normal, her skin was otherwise completely normal. She remained still, not fidgeting or talking in her sleep the way she usually would if she was having a nightmare. She was sound. She was safe. I hugged her as close to me as I could and held her like that until the sun rose the next morning. All coming to an end. Lost Flight, Part 2. Finishing up as quickly as I could in the restroom, I stepped out and scampered back to my seat. I put my earbuds in, hoping the sounds of 90s grunge music might drown out the flight attendant's voice in my head. It didn't. I looked out through the window, spotting... well, that was just it. I spotted nothing. I leaned forward to look a bit closer, and there was nothing. Everything was one giant grey cloud around the plane. Ah, great, I thought. A thunderstorm, and we're right in the middle of it. Fan-fucking-tastic. I closed my eyes and sighed. Calm yourself. You're just... running? My eyes snapped open. The voice was soft, monotone, mechanical almost, coming from the seat behind me. I turned to look behind me and saw this little girl. Couldn't have been a day over 9 or 10, sitting alone who, like everyone else on this creepy-ass flight, was staring forward with the blankest, deadest stare I've ever seen from a person. Lifeless, emotionless, mechanical. Excuse me? I asked. She continued staring at me with two doll-like eyes. You're running from something, aren't you? I frowned at her. What are you talking about? I started looking around. And where are your... They're gone too, Rick. My mouth fell open. My heart froze. How do you know my name? We all know who you are, Rick. You're running away just like I did. I don't understand. Of course you don't. I raised my eyebrow. For a moment, I couldn't tell whether or not it was a good idea to keep trying to talk to her. I'm not saying that I was scared of her hurting me or anything, obviously. Something about what she was saying, or at the very least implying, sounded to me like something I wouldn't want to know. Part of this is the fact that, at least from what I could see, she wasn't trying to be scary or anything like that. Nothing about what she said sounded like she was trying to exaggerate or even make some sort of shock statement. No, she meant it, every bit of it. And to answer your question, they're not here. I won't be seeing them for a long time. Your parents? I asked stupidly. She nodded. What? I told you already. I tried to run away, just like you are now. What makes you think I'm running from something? I can see it all over your face. You're running away from something. That's why you took this flight, isn't it? To get away? You lost something, didn't you? I closed my mouth. Figuring by now that through some means I couldn't understand this little girl knew just about everything about me, I decided that I'd just let her do the majority of the talking for herself. Was it someone you loved? It was for me. I sank back into my seat, hoping to send the message that I wasn't interested in talking anymore. It didn't convey, and so I could still hear the girl continue. Was it someone in your family? She asked in a monotone, droning sort of voice. A voice that you'd expect to hear from a vintage audio cassette. Cracked and sort of fuzzy, unclear. For me, it was my little sister. I'd just fitted one of my earbuds back in and was in the act of fitting the other one when I heard her add, she burned up and was gone. This made me freeze up. Every joint, every muscle, all seized up at the same time, while my heart jackhammered away at my chest. Burned up. Gone. Well, what are you... She used to be so happy until that day. We used to always run around the neighborhood, playing together after school. It was always fun with her. My mind immediately took me through every memory I'd stored of me and Irene. Every cherished moment, good, bad, and everything weird in between. From when I'd met her in high school to the day I lost her. Every feature of her face, every tender word she spoke to me, all started unloading on my brain. But it was heavy, overwhelming almost. One day I remember, she continued, we'd just gotten off the bus and were walking the rest of the way home, and I saw that she looked depressed. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me, everything's gonna end. All coming to an end. We went home that day and she wouldn't even play with me. When supper time came, she never came down. When we looked in her room, she was gone. The only thing she left behind was a large black spot in the middle of her floor. My eyes doubled in size. Black spot, just like... I rose up and looked behind my seat again. She was still staring dead at me. You saw this happen too? She blankly nodded. My heartbeat abruptly ceased. Damn, I wasn't crazy. We all have, Rick, she said. She pointed to another passenger on the opposite side of us, a couple of rows down. See him? I nodded. He lost his brother like that. How do you know this? You picking this flight wasn't an accident. It wasn't natural what happened either. Her head turned to look out of her window, admittedly the first time I'd seen anybody but me on this flight look anywhere other than forward. My mouth hung agape for a moment. God, how does she know all of this? How does she know me or what happened to Irene? I passed a glance around at the other passengers. How could it have happened to them? Because it's not new either, chimed the little girl, not looking away from the glass. What? Wait, how are you? Not new. I went silent again while she sighed and said, This has been going on for over 100 years or more. Wait, what the hell do you mean? Look out the window. I turned to face it. Outside of the window, the sky appeared colorless. It was as though the plane had flown into a nimbus so thick that it may as well have been a large pillow smothering the plane on all sides. What? I don't understand. Of course you don't. No one usually does. Blind men often don't know why they're blind until the truth forces their eyes to open just to see the truth. There was a dramatic, somewhat sinister pause that she made hang in the air for a solid half a minute before finishing with, That's nothing at all. What? Look, I'm sorry, can you just explain what this is? I mean, where the hell even are we? Why is everyone so lost? She asked, looking down from the window. I froze and then began laughing. Nothing was funny, but at the same time, it was funny, if you take my meaning. One of those, well, when you put it that way, type deals. Yeah. Maybe that is a good way to put it, ain't it? It's the truth. She was finally looking at me again. Her deadpan face seemed to fall even further into an expression of sadness. If you could have seen the face of this little girl in that instant, you would have seen the one true definition of the word hopeless. It was the same look Irene gave me that afternoon. We're all lost. We're all running. From what? What are you talking about here? Why did you board this flight, Ricky? To get away for a while. Get away from what? First, I said nothing. I couldn't see what this little brat was going on about. I wanted her to either giggle and tell me all this was a joke or start making some sort of sense, but I got neither. Instead, she just stared at me expectantly. Well, to get away from my hometown for a while, like I just said. Why though, Ricky? What was so wrong with your little town? I groaned. Look, kid, I'm serious when I say this. Just leave me alone if you're not going to just tell me what's going on. She kept gazing directly in my eyes, using them somehow to convey a strange yet oddly familiar feeling. Numbness. Emptiness. What's happening? Why am I feeling like this? Where is this place? How did we get here? Not by accident, Ricky. She got up from her seat then and walked toward the back of the cabin. I got up from my seat and started after her. Hey, wait. She ignored me. Her lead was a good few feet ahead of me, yet moving so fast that I thought for sure she'd just disappear all the way to the back before I could even blink. Suddenly, though, she stopped and turned to one of the passengers to her right. See him? She asked, raising her arm to point at the man in the seat. You see anything wrong? I looked at the man. He stared forward like everyone else, though with an admittedly even less emotional expression than the rest. What about him? I asked. Looks fine to me. Really? Fine? She cocked her head to the side. This looks like someone who's fine to you? Okay, so he looks down in the dumps, but what's that got to do with it? He looks dead, doesn't he? I exchanged glances back and forth between the two. He stared forward, completely oblivious to either of us. I guess. Well, he isn't, but he's not far from it. What? Look here. she said, pointing to the man's chest, where I saw a hole growing in the center. My eyes grew. "The hell?" I asked, shocked. "What is that?" "It's what happens to us all." She turned to face me again, unbuttoning her shirt a bit to reveal a hole in her own chest. "You have it too. It's the feeling of emptiness, the pain of loss." "What do you mean I have it? I don't have it." I stopped, realizing as I passed my hands over my chest that there was something off. Lifting up my shirt, I found to my horror that she was right. Holy shit, a fucking hole in my chest. What is... "This is what it feels like to feel nothing," the girl chimed in. "Wait, what does that mean? How do you know? How do you keep knowing what I'm..." "I should know, Ricky boy. It's my fault you're on this flight to begin with." My breath caught in my throat. "Wait, what? Who are you?" She stared at me, expressing both numbness as well as expectance. A look that told me she was disappointed I didn't know this sooner. In all honesty, I was telling myself the same thing. "Oh, Irene, but... She held up her hand, silencing me. "You remember what I told you, Ricky, about how it would all end?" "Yeah, I do." "Well, here we are, at the end." She waved her hands around the cabin. "I don't understand. You're saying the world's gonna end?" "Yes, for you, leastways." "Wait, what? What's that supposed to mean?" "You don't see the beauty of the world anymore, do you?" I looked again out of the window. Dull grey lifeless sky surrounded the plane on all sides. "There's no color to you, is there?" "No, but..." "And no, those aren't clouds, hon. You're seeing the world, but not the world you want to see. You're seeing the world the way that only those who are lost do." "Lost?" "Empty, dead inside, numb. Take your pick, they all mean the same thing. All of them are the products of a lost soul. It happens when we lose something we cherished above all else in the world." "How do you know this? How come you never..." "Because you weren't lost. You wanted purpose in your life. You wanted a reason to keep going. So I was given to you. I was able to give you a purpose while filling the hole in my own soul, for a time anyway." "But how? I mean, when did you..." Her voice got deeper, sounding more like her adult self as she said, "It was winter. I was about 13 and Penelope was 11. Through everything, good times and bad, whether we were hanging out or fighting with each other, the two of us were each other's best friends. It was snowing out and we decided to go sledding." Her stare returned to the window. Mine was redirected to the man. I began to see the hole spread out more and more, engulfing and dissolving more and more of him away. The more it did, the more I noticed that his body began to glow a distinct sort of golden, orangish color. "I went first," she continued. "Then it was Penelope's turn. But something went wrong. She ended up going much further than I did, far past the tree line and into the woods. She never came back out, and even after 6 months or more of searching, she was never found. The hole had swallowed most of the man's chest and was now working its way up and around his neck. I started feeling the familiar warmth coming from him, the same as what I'd felt from Irene before. That's when my soul became lost. Why are you telling me this? Why am I seeing all of this? What's happening to me?" She turned back to me with that same stare she'd given me that day on the couch and recited, "Have you not heard a word I said?" "I have, but it makes no sense. I mean, what happened to you? Why are you here? Why are you a child? Why?" "I tried to run away just like you are, just like they are." She pointed to the man again, who was now glowing much brighter than a minute ago. What's gonna... He's gonna cease to exist. The world has ended for them, so now he's gonna go with it." "Cease to exist?" I exclaimed. How do we stop it? You don't. The only ones that can stop that are themselves. They've lost their worlds, we've lost our worlds, and now it's time for us to go away too. But wait, what about you? How are you still here? This was when, for the first time, I watched something akin to genuine sadness mold into her small face as she said in her adult voice, "Because of you, Ricky boy." She came up and tenderly put her hand on my chest. Immediately, the hole in the center of my chest began to slowly open itself wider. "I told you, as long as you live, I'll always be with you, holding your soul." A feeling of numbness spread throughout my body from my chest. "You've been trying to run from me, just like I was running from my sister. You want to get away because you can't let go." My body felt hollow all of a sudden. All I could think to do was stand there, still as stone, staring slack-jawed at Irene. I couldn't feel anything, inside or out. The hole expanded, swallowing most of my stomach and already beginning to creep down my legs. "Because you won't let go. You've become lost like the rest of us." "What's going to happen to me?" I asked. There was considerably less emotion in my voice than there should have been. The emptiness was spreading, I realized, hollowing me out of mind, body, and spirit. "The same thing that happened to me," she replied, her voice noticeably cracking. "The world, life itself, will end for you. You won't exist anymore, and you'll fade from everyone's memory, along with the rest of us." I would have lost it hearing this under normal circumstances. I'd have flown into a panic trying to undo this, but the thing was, I didn't necessarily want to. I wasn't afraid, mostly, of course, due to the inability to feel at all, but also because a small part of me, the part of me that was consuming me, came to the conclusion that at least the nightmares would end, right? I'd be able to free myself of her, yeah? Hell, from a more optimistic perspective, this part of me presented the hope that, whatever happens, maybe I could be reunited with Irene again. We'd be together beyond even time. Right? "As long as you live." Her words echoed, bringing my naive fantasy crashing back to a grim reality. If I were no longer here, if I no longer existed, then neither would she. I was the only reason she was still here now, why she'd been around past the age of 13, why she wasn't completely lost. I'd kept her whole, despite me being the downer type of us both. I was the reason she wanted to shine. I began to feel tears sting my eyes. "Irene. I know you don't want to, Ricky, and I can't blame you if you don't, but please, stop running and let go." I can't. How do I?" "It's not too late. You just have to let go of me." "You mean forget about you?" "No, not forget. Detach. Accept the truth." "Of what?" "That I'm gone. I know it'll hurt you, but this will destroy us both if you don't." More and more, the feeling returned to my body, bringing with it a sense of something heavy, something crushing, something suffocating almost. "I love you, Rick. I never stopped, and I wish I could have stayed. I wish I could have been stronger. But you've always been the strongest of us, and I need you to be strong again now that I'm gone." The hole in my chest closed up again as I said, my breath shaking and broken in tears, "I love you too, Irene." Her other hand was then placed on my chest, and I watched the little girl in front of me transform into the familiar form of my beloved wife. Her body shone with an ivory aura that illuminated the dreary cabin surrounding us and overshadowed everything and everyone around us. Her face welcomed me with her warmest, most tender smile. In the short space of time this occurred, there were no sounds from me, her, or anything else around. It was me and her amid a beautiful white space. Serenity. Her hands moved tenderly from my chest and up and around my neck. My hands reflexively moved around her waist, gently pulling her closer to me. Then at last, we kissed. It was like every ounce of every emotion I kept bottled up channeled through my lips and into hers. She was taking all of my sorrow, all of my grief, my misery, and taking it into her. It was my relief, her way of holding me for comfort the same way I had her that day. I didn't feel her pull away. The only thing I did feel was an intense pain throughout my body as I woke to find myself sprawled out on the summit of a mountain. My head was throbbing madly, and my vision was little more than a giant cloud. That said, I realized something then. I could distinguish the color of the grass on the mountain around me. Not only that, but I looked up and was instantly blinded by the light of the sun. The colors, the heat, the life around me, it was all normal again. When my eyes adjusted a bit more, I found the hunks of the plain around me scattered everywhere. I attempted to sit up, which took a bit of effort, but I managed to do it before looking around to see if any of the other passengers had survived whatever the hell apparently happened while I was blacked out. And that's when I found, to my shock, that there was no trace of anyone else at all. I didn't want to know what to expect really, but I would have figured there would have been at least one or two of their bodies, or maybe parts of it. Something to signify that they were on the plane. But there was nothing, only me. Struggling to my feet, I managed to wade through, staggering until I found the discarded cockpit. I picked up the dangling radio, again not really knowing what the hell I was supposed to expect, and began trying to buzz somebody for help. I was a bit amazed when I began to hear the chopping of helicopter blades from outside. When I went back out, there it was, a rescue helicopter. I waved them down, and from there I was lifted off the mountain and to the hospital in the next closest town. I spent at least a week in the hospital before I was let go, having miraculously, a term that every nurse, surgeon, and elderly at the hospital repeatedly used to point out that I now found the word annoying, despite being the most accurate in my case. I'd sustained no major injuries. In that time I found out that the chopper came after the pilot supposedly made a distress call of some sort, before the line went completely dead and they couldn't re-establish contact. The official story is that Flight 249 entered turbulent weather and was struck by a bolt of lightning, bringing it to the mountain. Obviously, that never explained what happened with the other passengers, including the pilot who made the call that saved my life. I don't think there'll ever be a definitive answer on paper. I've seen internet searches about the missing passengers of Flight 249 and theories as to what happened. Well, I won't go into them here, but suffice to say, they're completely inaccurate, as well as proof of what she told me on the plane. In each of these theories, one thing always stands out to me. None of the passengers are ever named except me. In other words, despite being a commercial airline, despite the fact that there should have been a flight list with names, none are ever mentioned. In other words, they're as good as non-existent, speculated about only because of the fact that I was found alone. When asked for my version of the story, I fed them the line that everything was fine until I went to sleep, only to wake up on the mountain. Not the best attempt at a lie, mind you, but I knew they wouldn't believe me about Irene, about the end of everyone's world and all. Well, they didn't before. This was all 2 weeks ago. I came back home after leaving the hospital, and for the past 2 weekends, I've taken to hiking the mountain where I was going to propose to Irene. I know you probably expected me to become a hermit for a while after something like what I've written. Trust me, I get it. But I understood why I couldn't do that. It was that kind of life that almost cost me my existence as a whole. Almost cost Irene's too. Thinking back to the plane, I realized what she meant. I'd gotten on the plane because I couldn't handle life here at home without her, so I tried to run away to forget. In doing so, I almost couldn't stop it from eating me whole, the same way it did to her all those years ago. She saved me, though. She got me to be strong like she always had, and I could keep her memory alive, happily, instead of drowning myself in it. This last weekend, coming up to the spot on the mountain where she disappeared 3 years ago, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the ring I'd meant to give her. I'd never gotten rid of it, always carrying it with me. Taking it out of the box, I placed it on the spot where she was. I love you, Irene. Now and forever. Through heaven and through hell. I'm the best man I can be because of you. The only things I can say to you are, thank you, and will you marry me? Well, he just keeps knocking them out of the park every single time I read one of his stories. He really does. What an incredible imagination, and brings such incredible worlds alive. And I'm just a big fan, to be honest. I haven't done one of his for a while, but there you go. Corpse Child, another beautiful one from you. So thank you very, very much for sharing that with us. Well, yeah, I'm hoping not to tempt fate today by reading that story, because I had to go to drive to Dusseldorf and pick up my son, who'd spent the last couple of weeks in Istanbul during a school holiday. And I thought, oh my God, do I really want to do a story about a weird and crazy flight when he's flying? Anyway, don't believe in that kind of thing too much, so I just thought, well, it's going to be all right, isn't it? And it was, of course. Anyway, enough of this waffling. Back again tomorrow night with another long story for you. Till then, my dear friends, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. Really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.